There's a specific kind of loneliness that belongs to the early 2010s internet. It lived in Tumblr reblogs at 2 in the morning. It lived in black and white photo filters and My Chemical Romance lyrics typed into aim-away messages. It was a generation that had grown up with broadband and social media and had somehow still managed to feel completely unseen. That loneliness needed a soundtrack, and for a while, nothing was writing it. SoundCloud in 2013 was still a place where something real could happen. The algorithm hadn't fully colonized it. If you posted something strange and it connected, people found it, not because a platform pushed it to them, but because word spread the way it used to through shared links in comment sections and forum posts. A loose network of kids in their late teens and early 20s were starting to post music that didn't fit anywhere. It wasn't rap exactly. It wasn't punk. It wasn't emo in the way your older sibling understood that word. It was all three, collapsed into each other, recorded on whatever was available, uploaded at odd hours to small audiences that grew slowly and then, suddenly, very fast. They called themselves GothBoiClique. To understand GothBoiClique, you have to understand that it was never really a group in the traditional sense. There was no label that assembled them, no A&R who saw market potential, no cosign from an established name that opened doors. It was closer to a friend group, a rotating cast of like-minded artists who shared an aesthetic, a set of references, and a willingness to make music that most people at the time thought was unmarketable. Gustav Orr, known to the internet as Lil Peep, was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania in 1996. He grew up on Long Island. By the time he was 18, he had moved to Los Angeles with almost nothing, sleeping on floors, building a presence online that felt unlike anything else happening in music at the time. Peep's sound was the collision point. He listened to AFI and Bright Eyes and 3-6 Mafia in equal measure. He sang about heartbreak and drug use and suicidal ideation in a voice that was half crooning, half rapping, fully unguarded in a way that felt genuinely dangerous, like he meant it. Adam McElwee had already lived a musical life before GothBoiClique. As the lead singer of Tiger's Jaw, a beloved indie emo band out of Scranton, Pennsylvania, he had years of touring and recording under his belt, but something was pulling him in a different direction. Under the name Wicca Phase Springs Eternal, McElwee leaned further into darkness. His verses were literary, unhurried, filled with imagery that felt lifted from old journals. He was older than most of the others, and it showed, not in distance, but in craft. Brennan Savage was one of Peep's closest collaborators from the beginning. Where Peep wore his emotion on the surface, Savage's delivery was colder, more withdrawn, which made the two of them fit together like opposing charges. Their collaborative tracks were some of the most compelling early work to come out of the collective. Young Bruh, later Lil Tracy, brought a warmer melodic sensibility into the mix, a contrast to the more abrasive corners of the collective's sound. He and Peep had a chemistry that was immediately obvious on record, trading lines with an ease that suggested hours of low-stakes creation in rooms no one was watching. Fish Narc, Cold Heart, Horsehead, Doves. The roster was never fixed. People floated in and out. What held it together wasn't a lineup. It was a frequency, a shared understanding of what they were going for, even if none of them could have told you exactly what that was. The GBC sound was built on top of beats that were themselves built on borrowed parts. Producers like Mally Raw and others in their orbit were chopping up post-punk samples, The Cure, Susie and the Banshees, Bauhaus, and laying trap hi-hats underneath them. The result was something that shouldn't have worked. The tempo was wrong, the emotional register was wrong, the instrumentation was wrong, and somehow it was the most right thing a lot of people had ever heard. Peep's early mixtapes, Hellboy, Crybaby, Lil Peep Part 1, were released for free on SoundCloud and DatPiff. There was no rollout strategy, no press campaign, no radio push. They just appeared, and they spread, because the people who found them felt something. The lyrics were direct in a way that hip-hop at the time largely wasn't. Peep sang about wanting to die, about being high all the time, about loving people who didn't love him back, about being aware that he was destroying himself and not being able to stop. In the comment sections, kids wrote back. Thousands of them. saying that he had put into words something they had never been able to say out loud, that the music had found them at the exact moment they needed to be found. This is what GBC represented, more than any particular sound or style. It was permission. Permission to be a rap fan who cried. Permission to wear eyeliner and talk about wanting to die and still be hard. Permission to be young and in pain and not perform otherwise. By 2016, something was shifting. The SoundCloud underground had been building pressure for years, and it was starting to break through into something larger. X, Ski Mask, Smoke Perp, Trippy Red, a wave was forming, and the mainstream music press was starting to notice. Peep occupied a unique position in this moment. He was of the wave, but not reducible to it. His European tours, he spent significant time in London and across the continent, had built him a fan base that skewed differently than the average SoundCloud rappers. Emo kids, punk kids, people who had never previously felt invited into hip-hop. He was selling out shows, not arenas, not yet, but real shows in real rooms with real audiences who knew every word. The tattoos had become part of the mythology. His face was an evolving canvas, each edition documented and dissected online. He had turned himself into a visual statement as much as a musical one, a walking argument for a kind of masculinity that mainstream culture hadn't fully sanctioned yet. Soft and hard, vulnerable and reckless, in love with being alive and openly flirting with not being. Labels were circling, the conversations were happening. It seemed like 2017 was going to be the year everything broke open. The moment GBC's ethos crossed over from underground to inescapable.
Yeah, good evening, Sky and Stella. The Pima County Medical Examiner says the toxicology reports will take about 6 to 8 weeks to get the results back to determine what was in Lil Peep's system. But take a look behind me, a growing memorial, fans out here all throughout the day paying their respects to the rapper. He was set to perform here
On November the 15th, 2017, Lil Peep was scheduled to perform at The Rock, a venue in Tucson, Arizona. He was 21 years old. He was found unresponsive on his tour bus before the show. He was pronounced dead shortly after midnight. The cause was accidental overdose, fentanyl-laced Xanax, which he had taken believing them to be what they were labeled. He was the latest casualty of a drug supply that had grown quietly lethal. The same synthetic opioid contamination that would go on to kill tens of thousands of Americans had reached the counterfeit pill market, and it had reached him. The reaction was immediate and enormous. Fans gathered outside venues. They posted old SoundCloud links. They wrote in comment sections that had been quiet for years. They went back to those songs that had found them at the right moment and listened to them with the full weight of what had happened. GothBoiClique did not end with Peep's death, but something did. The collective had always been a living thing, shifting membership, evolving sound. No fixed center. Peep had been one node in a larger network, but he had also been the node that the outside world had latched onto, the one whose face appeared in think pieces and music blog write-ups, the one whose image had started appearing on shirts in mall stores. Without that gravitational pull, the collective's trajectory changed. Posthumous releases followed. Come Over When You're Sober, Parts 1 and 2. The second finished after his death by collaborators and the label that had signed him. Introduced his music to an even larger audience. Millions of streams, mainstream obituaries, retrospective pieces about the SoundCloud generation. The music found all those new listeners. But the scene that had made it, the bedroom studios, the free SoundCloud drops, the small shows in small rooms where the crowd knew every word, that was harder to package and sell. Wicca Phase, Springs Eternal continued. His output after Peep's death took on a different weight, a more deliberate grief. The literary quality of his lyrics turned toward absence. He became, in some ways, the keeper of the collective's most considered voice. Brennan Savage has been open about the years of struggle that followed. Addiction, loss, the difficulty of continuing to make art when someone you built it with is gone. The artists who came after, the next generation of emo-rap, cloud rap, whatever you want to call it, largely grew up listening to GBC. You can hear it in the music of Blade, of Lil Lotus, of dozens of smaller artists still posting to SoundCloud. The templates Peep and his collaborators built in Los Angeles bedrooms and tour buses are now foundational documents. It would be easy to reduce GothBoiClique to tragedy, to let Peep's death become the whole story, another young artist consumed by the same forces his music described. But that reading misses what the collective actually accomplished. They made space. They expanded what was allowed to exist in popular music. A generation of young people, many of them dealing with depression, anxiety, the particular weight of growing up online, the exhaustion of performing wellness, found in GBC a mirror that didn't flinch. The music didn't tell them things were going to be okay. It told them that someone else felt the same way. And sometimes, for a lot of people, that is enough. GothBoiClique was not a label. It was not a brand. It was not a movement anyone planned. It was a group of people who found each other on the internet in the years before everything became too loud and too visible and too legible to capital. They made something true while they had the chance. And it mattered. It still does.